Hey guys, well, I can't believe we're in the final hours of 2022, so I'm currently filming this on December 31st, 10:05 p.m., so I want to hurry up and get this video up right before the clock strikes 12. So yeah, so I'm going to be talking briefly about um, some of the good things and bad things that happened in 2022. 2022 was more of an up and down year. I mean, a year with lots of ups and downs. So yeah, 2022 was some bad things did happen, but yeah. So if 2022 was a good year for you, that's awesome. So yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna go by month. I'm gonna skip the months where nothing much happens. So yeah. So January through February, let's see. So basically this is during my freshman year of college. And basically we were all, really excited about, attending class in person again, since it's been decades since I've done that. And, I get to feel the college life, attending classes with other people and socializing, trying to make friends there, and yeah, that was awesome. But unfortunately, from January to February, the Omicron variant became an issue, and basically we had to transition to distance learning for a month, and it kind of sucked that we weren't able to really socialize with other people, and we had to distance a lot. And I had to be home for some time and not be in the dorm, and distance learning just makes things really, really hard, like brutally hard. It puts pressure on the teachers, puts pressure on students, and it just makes things hard in general. And there's some points where teachers would lose their cool. Let me exactly make this clear. So basically, there's this one teacher who forces us to basically participate, even on a Zoom class. And because it's so hard to participate on a Zoom class, the teacher would basically kind of yell at us and say, "Oh, hey, if you don't participate, then sign out of Zoom right now," that type of thing. So yeah, I understand it's pretty hard, so I'm kind of glad that we pushed through it. And fortunately, towards the end of January, we kind of transitioned back to in-person learning. And that was the time that I had pretty hard classes after my first quarter. My first quarter, I took some very easy classes, like basically mostly GEs, and basically just like getting started, very easy classes. But second quarter, I really get the real feel of how college work is supposed to be like, because I know like people say it's not fun, it's supposed to be frustrating, it's something you gotta mentally push through. So yeah, that's a pretty good example. As I took a writing class, I took a abstract Python programming class. That's a pretty hard class. And I also took, I think it's math, calculus 2, which is integral calculus. That is ridiculously hard. Like I never want to see that stuff again, But yeah, but enough of that rambling. So now, let's see. So March, nothing much happened. April, nothing much, life-wise. May, I don't think there's anything in May. May, COVID restrictions start to become less and less strict. Basically, we get to wear masks less often, which is great, So at times I would take off my mask because, leaving my mask on is definitely one of the worst feelings now, because I feel like I can't breathe, and under a mask. So, I'm kind of glad those restrictions are being released. But unfortunately, in the very beginning of June, this is a month where there's like very good and very bad stuff happening. June, unfortunately I get COVID, because a lot of people at that time are getting COVID, and there's just really no way to control it because everyone stopped wearing masks, and yeah. So the time I got COVID, I felt, I just felt kind of off, to be honest, but everyone was pretty much getting it, and I still felt off, and the least fun part was, having to isolate. So after I got the note of a positive COVID test, I basically had to isolate in my dorm. All my roommates are, somewhere else. One of my roommates also got COVID. He had to isolate, and the other one stayed at his friend's place. So basically, I was just in my dorm, just, I don't know, like, just, getting a lot, trying to get some support from Reddit, see how the process is gonna go. So yeah, and yeah, it was definitely not fun thinking about what am I gonna have to go through, how long I'm gonna have to go through the whole isolation thing, and what am I gonna feel, So basically, a day or so later, I get a call from the isolation team, and then I get moved to a hotel with a roommate. I'm kind of glad I got a roommate because we can like talk about some things, and yeah, doesn't so I don't have to feel so lonely. Yeah, because like I just need someone to talk to. That's the whole point. Um, basically, we kind of met each other. We had pretty good talks about our classes and such forth. So yeah, kind of glad we went through this together. And my symptoms of COVID weren't too bad, at least. Like basically like a runny nose, somewhat of a bad throat, I guess. So yeah, so wasn't too bad. I had to stay there for about 10 days. But even then, isolation was absolutely no fun. Like, I had nothing to do. I was trapped in like this box basically, and all I had to do was be on my device, watching movies, watching YouTube, or I guess studying for final exams. Oh, and speaking of final exams, I got COVID in the very last week of school where final exams occurred. So that is very, very unfortunate. So studying for finals became somewhat harder. I had to postpone one of my final exams since it was in person. So that means I have to worry about it later on, which kind of sucks. But it's whatever, things happen, and I ended up missing out on a family gathering. But there's always more, so it's all right. But what really sucked is that I had to worry about that final. But at least earlier this year I got it done with, so I'm good. So yeah, that really sucked, having finals in the very last week of school. And yeah, so right after I got off isolation, left the dorms for the summer, basically a week later, we have our first ever flight trip since 2019 to Hawaii. And definitely that was one of my most best trips that me and my family has ever done. We get to see the beautiful beaches of Maui, we get to see the beautiful waters, and it's almost like paradise, like we're almost in a different country. I'm just so amazed by what I've seen. We stayed at a very cool condo with a very nice ocean view. I also went scuba diving, and I got to take a bunch of pictures in there, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, yeah, basically I felt like I was in a different country, but with the exception is that we're still in the US technically, because Hawaii is part of the US. So yeah, that was definitely one of the coolest trips I've done. I wish I stayed there for longer, but uh, vacations will never last forever, so that's basically the whole thing. So after I come back from Hawaii, I had a long summer break ahead of me. So basically from June to September, I did quite a lot of hangouts, and I think that made up for one of the most craziest summers I've had. And that was the time that I also got my driver's license. Hooray for me. So I got my driver's license. It took, for some reason, it took so long for me to get it, because I guess I had some things in the way. So finally I got it. I'm glad I've done it. So, you know, it's done with. I also got to hang out with friends, you know, I guess, you know, exploring around places, riding elevators. That's basically what I do for my elevator transport channel, riding elevators. And and speaking of my elevator channel, I got to meet up with one of the fellow elevator YouTubers, and that was amazing. You know, it was kind of nerve-wracking to meet someone else from online, but he's known pretty well, so I kind of trusted him. So yeah, it was amazing. You know, we basically had good talks about elevators, and it's just amazing to see someone famous that you meet in person. That's just an amazing feeling, you know. So that was pretty cool. So basically after that, school starts from, basically my school starts really late in September. So yeah. And this is where things get kind of to the downside. I took a really hard class, which is computer systems and C programming. It was a professor that made the class really hard. And let's see what else I also had a film class where basically we just analyze film. That's a really easy class. And I also had vector calculus. That class wasn't too bad. But that quarter was probably one of the most frustrating quarters I've ever had, to be honest. And it was this is a quarter not like any other. Computer systems and C class was a really hard class for me. We had very tedious homework assignments, and basically I had to spend so much time on it that I couldn't even do anything else. Like, I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. And I'm being very serious about this. So I had to spend a ridiculous amount of time on each of the homeworks, and the hours would get increasingly long. You know, there's one homework where I have to spend maybe a good 20 hours, but then there's one I have to spend like at least 50 hours. That is insane. I've never done something like that before, but it's the professor that, you know, that made it really hard. But yeah, it was very frustrating, especially when we got towards the end of the quarter. One of the homework assignments became really hard. I was about to break down because I felt like I wouldn't be able to finish one of the assignments. But yeah, on top of that, we would have like weekly quizzes, and we basically have to like study everything in detail. So it really made things really hard. And there's, I don't know, unfortunately there's some things in other classes I wasn't able to do, so I missed out on the assignments, which really is not a good thing. And yeah, I kind of wish I took like this class with one easier class. And yeah, I highly regret it, but it's whatever. I had to basically overload myself, which is definitely not the move. So it really did suck, and I'm really hoping that I can have a more social life next quarter. Next quarter I'm going to be taking some somewhat easier classes, so it should be better. So yeah, so hopefully I'll never have to do this again. And unfortunately, I wasn't really able to enjoy my Thanksgiving because I was so stressed out about my homework. So yeah, so Thanksgiving was definitely not as enjoyable as I thought as I wanted to be. And that and for the finals and for the finals, I basically had to cram in all the finals, which was really brutal. This is the point where I was about to like mentally break down and like about to like give up, but you know, I just had to keep pushing through and eventually like make it out of the tunnel, you know, through into the light. So I kept pushing through. I think it did pretty decent on everything, so that's good. Um, yeah, so finals was brutal, assignments was brutal, this quarter was absolutely brutal, and yeah, I will never forget. It's too hard to forget. But anyways, and basically, there was also the strike, which really didn't help. Um, Basically, there's no teacher assistants, there's no tutors, and basically some of the professors had to overwork themselves. And yeah, that made things even tougher. The strike did help in some ways because one of my classes basically, quote unquote, got canceled because a professor wanted to join the strike, I guess. So basically, that's all what happened. Um, but that also delayed the grades, and I was just and grades did not come out until like the middle of winter break, and basically that eventually made up for one of the most stressful winter breaks I've ever had. Like, I never had to stress out this much about winter break because of my grades. Because the grades really tell me what I have to do next for the next quarter. So, it's either this or that, that type of thing. Well, of course, back in high school, winter break, I didn't have to stress out for finals, but it's something that, oh, if you study, you do well, but like in this case, for winter break, my grades are coming out, so it's either this or that. So it's very nerve-wracking. So that's basically the whole thing. So yeah, so that's that for uh winter or fall quarter of 2022. And yeah, so after all my grades came out, I was kind of glad I passed all the classes, and I was able to actually enjoy my winter break. So I enjoyed Christmas pretty well. We actually got to do a full-on gathering for our Christmas party. There's some people I haven't seen for quite a long time. I don't know, probably since 2019 in Christmas gatherings. So I was kind of glad we were able to do that. And, my aunt flew over from Florida to visit us just like last year. She didn't in 2020 because things were pretty bad in 2020. So yeah. And 2022, I did quite some hangouts. We did quite some crazy stuff. One day we went to the national park in Fremont. We got to basically walk on this trail right next to one of the Trans Bay bridges, and that was crazy. We had good talks with my friends, and also, and this day we went to San Francisco, basically to film a bunch of elevators, and unfortunately the weather wasn't great, but it was at least a fun experience, just being in the rain. So yeah, so definitely it was a stressful and fun winter break. And of course, I was bored at the same time because I was home most of the time and I basically had nothing to do. So yeah. So yeah, it was enjoyable and stressful, So kind of like that. So yeah. So I know this reflection was very rushed, but I wanted to get this out right before 12 o'clock strikes, and I still need to allow the video to upload and edit the video. So yeah, so in summary, 2022 was kind of like an up and down year. There's a lot of good things, there's some bad things that happen, so it's pretty much an even balance, so yeah. So some of the highlights is that I went on a vacation to Hawaii, did a lot of crazy hangouts during the summer, got my driver's license. Some of the lowlights is that I Had some pretty stressful quarters of college, especially fall of 2022 with the computer systems and C programming class. Yeah, but I had a pretty enjoyable a Christmas gathering, basically like a full-on gathering, and being able to see everyone again. So that's what I really enjoyed. So yeah, so I'd rate 2022 probably a good 6.5 out of 10. That's what I give. Given that a lot of crazy things has happened, given that I've gotten COVID and all that stuff. So yeah. So I'm kind of sorry that this reflection is a little disorganized, but it is a bit rushed. So yeah. So yeah, with that being said, this will be the very last video of 2022. With that being said, I hope you guys have a good 2023. And hopefully things turn out better in terms of COVID. We get to release some restrictions and, yeah. We get to do a lot more cool stuff next year. And hopefully have not so stressful quarters. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys for watching for the last time of 2022. With that being said, on to 2023. Goodbye.